Have you ever taken a flight feeling great when you arrive at your destination, only to start coming down with a cold a day or two later? Well, you're not alone. There may be up to an 80% greater chance of you getting sick on a flight, depending on where you're sitting. So it's not just your imagination, and there are a lot of factors that go into play as to why you might increase your chances of getting sick after a flight that go beyond just being in a cramped metal box with a whole bunch of other people. But you can reduce your chances of getting sick on your next flight with a little bit of preparation and some seating strategy. Hi everybody, foXnoMad here, and today I want to help you travel smarter by showing you some of the ways that you can reduce your chances of getting a cold or a flu right after your next flight. First, let's dispel some myths about airplane air, which a lot of people attribute to getting the post-flight coughs and sniffles. The air that is circulated on planes goes through high-efficiency particulate air, or HEPA filters, and planes do intake some amount of fresh air during the flight. About 50% of the air you breathe on a flight is recycled with HEPA filters, which capture about 99.97% of airborne particles over zero point 0.3 microns in size. That's enough to filter out pretty much all bacteria and a lot of viruses. Most large airline passenger jets have HEPA filters, and you can always confirm it by looking up the type of aircraft your next flight will be on. HEPA filters and air ventilation systems on large planes are so good that sitting next to somebody on a flight is equivalent to standing 2 meters or 6 feet away from somebody in an office or a grocery store or an airport. You see, check-in lines, security queues, bathrooms, lounges, there are a lot of people you come into contact with at an airport, so that's where you're most likely to catch a cold. If catching a cold is something you're especially concerned about, a mask is a pretty good precaution in these places, but I know most of you probably won't use one, so avoiding lines where you can, like trying to use self-checkout and using the self-checkout at airport shops, is where you can potentially reduce some of your exposure, and of course, avoiding crowds as much as possible, but in an airport, that can be really, really difficult. And of course, you're touching all kinds of things in an airport with everybody else touching all kinds of things. So make sure to wash your hands, which you should do very frequently, and keep some hand sanitizer on you as well. You can't avoid all people when you're traveling. I mean, just getting to the airport, you might be taking a metro or using a ride share. And then once you're in the airport, they're pretty crowded. Usually, they're going to be just groups of people. You're going to be next to them. So it's hard to limit your exposure. Try to do that as much as you can. But once you get onto your plane, there are some statistics that show that where you sit can actually reduce the chance of you getting sick on your next flight. A study conducted by Boeing, Emory University, and Georgia Tech in 2018 indicated there may be a greater chance of getting sick on a flight, with some caveats. 10 researchers took 5 round-trip flights across the United States, documenting passenger movements and sampling the air for 18 common respiratory illnesses. Not surprisingly, the researchers found that sitting in a row with a sick passenger or directly in front of or behind a sick passenger increased the chances of getting sick. That's because you're likely to be within that 2 meters or about 6 feet, which puts you in the range to be at a higher risk of catching a cold or flu from somebody else. The study was examining flights with 3-seat rows, but a person directly on the other side of the aisle also isn't entirely safe. They had about an 80% chance of getting sick. For the people across the aisle in the middle or window seat, they had about a 10 to 30% chance increase of becoming ill. Now, this is a very small sample size, and it doesn't really give us any kind of major revelation. Sitting next to sick people or just being around sick people with respiratory illnesses is going to increase your chance of catching that cold or flu. The study did suggest that sitting in the aisle seat is the worst place to be if you're trying to avoid getting a cold or a flu on your next flight, likely because you're being exposed to more people when they're getting on the plane and getting off the plane and walking up and down the aisle during the flight or going to the bathroom. You're just being exposed to more people. And for the opposite reason, sitting next to the window decreases your chances of getting sick because you're just not being exposed to as many people and you've got a wall or a window next to you, so there's nobody sitting there. There is some good news, though, that came out of this study. Out of the 229 passengers that were tracked, only one of them became sick after the flight, which is a pretty low percentage, so that's good news for you as a traveler. There's also something you can do with the air in the plane that can help reduce your chances even further. According to Dr. Mark Gendrau, you can create an air curtain using the gaspers if they're available on your next flight. Gaspers are the name of those adjustable personal air vents that I'm sure you recognize, which can be adjusted, opened, and closed, and they blow cool air. Dr. Gendrau says that angling them at medium flow, so that the air is blowing just in front of your face, can create some additional turbulence that might push away airborne germs just enough to keep you from inhaling them or from them landing on you. Of course, you can't completely eliminate your chances of catching a cold or a flu on your next flight, but some of the congestion and the sniffles that you experience after your flight might come down just to dry air. Most plane cabins have 10 to 20% relative humidity, whereas for most people, something between 30 and 60% is more comfortable. When you're flying on a plane at altitude, the air is drier in the cabin, and so what happens is your body responds by making more mucus to prevent you from drying out. Then when you land, you have got all this extra mucus, which creates congestion, maybe a runny nose, maybe a little bit of a cough. So it's sort of that adjustment period between the high humidity to low humidity, back down to, regular humidity that can create all of this extra congestion. And it might feel like you're getting a cold when you're just really gunked up with mucus. All the pressure changes can also cause ear pain and other sensations after a flight, like the slow bounciness you might feel for a few days. And if you're interested to learn more about those, I've linked to the foXnoMad podcast episode with Dr. Saba Gorab, who explains how you can ease your symptoms and why they occur in the first place. And this doesn't factor in things like lack of sleep or jet lag that you might encounter on your next flight, both things which can reduce your immune system and the ability to fight off colds and flus. For now though, I hope this video helps reduce your chances of getting sick on your next flight. But if you have any personal tricks and tips of your own to stop coughing and the sniffles and that post-flight flu or the post-flight cold, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'll have new videos for you every week, and I'll see you in the next video.